on vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the latest vinyl reissues that were put out by Pink Floyd. Before I go into these reissues, I'm just going to go on record saying that Pink Floyd is my second favorite band of all time next to Kiss, and they're probably the only band that I truly enjoy collecting in general, whether it be down to vinyl, CD, DVD, books, box sets, anything of that sort. I always go out and buy them because I really enjoy any product that Pink Floyd offers to their fans. So with that being said, let's get into detail on what this video is all about. And I would say when I started collecting, I set out to get all of the Pink Floyd stuff on vinyl. And that always wasn't the most easiest thing to do because especially their early albums, along with their stuff in general, it would always go for a premium price that I just couldn't justify paying. Whether it be at a record store or looking on eBay and Discogs, it was just a impossible mission of sorts. So I kind of waited around a bit, and I ended up picking up all the reissues that were out at the time when I started. And then in 2015, I actually got a hold of a record collection from someone that I know. They didn't want anything for them, they just wanted to get it out of their hands, and luckily a small portion of that collection were some Pink Floyd albums that I wanted in my collection, which I'll show in this video later on. But there were still some gaps in between albums. Like I would have this one, but then these two would be missing. Then I'd have the next one. So I still kind of waited around a bit. And then in early 2016, they announced that they were going to be reissuing these studio albums on vinyl. And I was totally happy with that. But that isn't the first time that the Pink Floyd catalog has seen a vinyl reissue. The first case of their stuff being repressed actually dates as early as the late 90s. In 1997, EMI repressed Piper the Gates of Dawn, Atom Heart Mother, Relics, Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, and The Wall. Unfortunately, I do not know much about these reissues in terms of how they sound, who mastered them, whatnot. All I know off the top of my head is that they were released only in England. They were released in two ways. They were released separately, and then they were together in a box set. And the version of Piper that came out was actually the mono version. And the mono version of Piper is something that a lot of Pink Floyd fans have been really wanting to get repressed, including myself. You can actually still manage to get those particular reissues for about 40 to 50 bucks on average on Discogs. So if anyone has had them or knows anything about them, drop a comment down below. I'd love to know. And then flash forward a little bit. And then in 2003, it's the 30th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon, and a vinyl reissue is done for that, mastered by Kevin Gray and Doug Sax. Now, I have not heard this version or seen it anywhere, but all I know is that with those two names, Kevin Gray and Doug Sax involved, that is probably one of the best sounding versions of Dark Side of the Moon out there, considering that those two vinyl mastering engineers are some of the best in the vinyl world. Flash forward a bit again, and in 2011, there is the Why Pink Floyd reissue campaign, where they remastered the studio catalog on CD, and then they also released deluxe, super deluxe, and vinyl editions of Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and The Wall. Now, those were the reissues that I mentioned that I picked up. When I started collecting, these were still available, so I was able to snag them. They were mastered by Doug Sax, and I believe they used the 2011 remasters that they used for the CDs, and they sound absolutely excellent. All the artwork is perfectly replicated. Dark Side has all the posters and the stickers, and there's the postcard in Wish You Were Here, along with the black inner bag that it comes in. And the cool thing with the 2011-2012 reissues is that they actually come with a bonus poster with each album that is exclusive to that particular pressing. So that's the really cool kind of bonus aspect of it. And then in 2014, there was a 20th anniversary box set version of the Division Bell that came out, and it featured the album on vinyl on 2 LPs, which was really neat because for you Floyd geeks out there, if you know the original 1994 pressing included some songs that were kind of cut up in length, so it would all fit on 1 LP. But now for the first time, the lengths have been restored and it's now spread over 2 LPs. And so at that time, that was all that was kind of out there in terms of reissues, and they were affordable, you know, in some senses. I mean, they a little pricier than what I would normally pay for an album, but considering that they sounded really good and you got a bunch of extras, it was worth it. So right off the bat, like I said, in early 2016, they announced that they're going to do the entire catalog. And up first, on June 3rd of 2016, the first ones that they reissued were Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Saucer Full of Secrets, the soundtrack for the movie More, and Ummagumma. Now, before these reissues came out, I did have some of these albums which came from that collection that I talked about just earlier. Right up front first, we have a little compilation called A Nice Pair. This includes Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Saucer Full of Secrets. This came out in 1973. Now, you Floyd fans out there that know your vinyl, the version of Astronomy Domini on the Piper disc on this set is actually the live version that comes from the Ummagumma album, and then just hearing that and then jumping to Lucifer Sam just seems a bit off, so I always just kind of settled for this until the reissue came out. But then again, sometime before I got that, I actually got this as a Christmas gift from my godmother. And it's a picture disc version, which I'm not too big on picture discs, like in terms of playing them. They're great for displaying purposes, and that's why I have my version framed. And I believe from last time I played this, I believe it's the mono version, because it sounded significantly different to the convent stereo version that I'm most used to. And then I also have an early pressing of Ummagumma, which has the censored GG cover. This pressing actually held up very nicely in terms of the sleeve. Like, there's a little bit of ring wear, but nothing too entirely bad. So that was what I had prior to those reissues. Now, I got this on the day of release. The store that I work at got this in, and this was the only reissue that they had got in of the first batch of the Floyd stuff, so I was able to pick it up the morning that it came out. And then about a month later in July, I picked up the More soundtrack. And then for the sake of having a standalone copy, I got this for my birthday in September of that year. And then just recently for my birthday in 2017, I got the Ummagumma reissue. So that was the first batch that came out. And then we kind of get at a sequence for the next batch, which came in August of 2016, and they did The Wall and the Division Bell. Now, I already had my Doug Sachs version of The Wall from 2012, so I did not see the need to get that again. And then for the Division Bell, they actually ended up just using the Doug Sachs version, but just modifying the artwork just slightly, so I didn't see the need to get that. But then the next batch that came out in the following month, in September, we got back in sequence. So we got Atom Heart Mother, Metal, and Obscured by Clouds. Now, I got Atom Heart Mother and Obscured by Clouds on the day of release, when they came out on September 23rd. I got Metal on my birthday in 2017 only because prior to that I had a very early first pressing. Obviously, as you can tell, this is like the American cover of it, whereas this one is a bit more pleasing for purist reasons. But this copy actually sounded very, very nice, and artwork wise, in terms of the sleeve, it's actually in pretty decent shape. So that was the next batch that came out. And then on October 14th, we got Wish You Were Here. Now, this is when it gets a bit confusing. Here in the US, what we first got was essentially a repress of the 2011 Doug Sax version that was put out a few years before that. But overseas in England, they got the new Bernie Grumman version, and Bernie Grumman mastered these reissues. I'll go into better detail about that later on in this video. So they got the Bernie Grumman version. So for the sake of getting the newer versions, you would have to order it via import from like Amazon.co.uk or some overseas retailer. But then luckily they fixed that, and us here in the US, we were able to get that Bernie Grumman version. Like I said, I had the Doug Sax version from 2011. I don't know how they stand up side by side, but I'm sure they sound pretty damn good. After that, we got Dark Side of the Moon, and same thing. Already had my Doug Sax copy, and I'm just fine with that. And then after that, we got, this was in November, I believe, we got Animals. Now, I got this for my birthday in 2017, and because I already had a first pressing of it, which sounded great. Sleeve is just has a little bit of ring wear, and plus, honestly, I just love the way the artwork looks on this version. Just the cover looks more murky, the contrast is more beefed up in this cover, and that's why I actually really catered more to this reissue, and plus it sounds very good as well. And then, in the new year, in January of 2017, we got the Final Cut and Momentary Lapse of Reason. Now, I got Momentary Lapse of Reason for my birthday in 2017. And then I also got this for Christmas 2017. And before I received those, I already had a first press of the Final Cut. This is part of that collection that I talked about earlier from 2015 that I got, and I have to tell you, this is almost, I would say, considering that it's not sealed or still having the shrink wrap, this is a dead mint copy. I played this once, and I could have sworn it was probably the only time that it was ever played, and it sounded excellent. I believe this was actually done at the Mastering Lab, which is Doug Sax's facility, and this sounded very, very nice. And then I also had I believe this is an early pressing of Momentary Lapse. This is actually my parents' copy, and the vinyl is a bit scuffed, and the sleeve is a bit ragged, so I really felt that getting an upgrade would really do me well. So that was the studio catalog, and for a while it seemed that that was it, because there was nothing really popping up in terms of other vinyl reissues. Until November of 2017, they all of a sudden decided to reissue a collection of great dance songs and the live album Delicate Sound of Thunder. Now, as of the making of this video, that is all the reissues that are out. Now, if you look at the catalog numbering system that they're doing for these reissues, you notice a few gaps. Now, and I take it that we're probably going to get more vinyl reissues in at some point down the road in the future. Perhaps a reissue of Relics, the Pulse live album, perhaps. That would be a 4 LP set, I think. As well as the Echoes compilation, whatever else is there. And if they do plan on it, please bring it, and I definitely would cover those on this channel whenever they decide to come out. Now, that was all that they have released up at this point. Now let's talk about the packaging. And everything is replicated to great detail. The cool thing with the early records, from Piper, Saucerful, and more, they include this kind of fold-over, like little flap on the top and the bottoms of the back covers. Now, it's not a legit, like, literal replica, but if you look at it, it looks pretty dang close, which I think is kind of cool, because over in England, that was the way that they had packaged LPs at the time. I don't know if you can catch that, but it does the same thing there. The labels are all replicated. The early ones have the old Parlophone labels and everything. But here's the interesting thing. Now, I think this might be something that the purist might pitch a fit about. Well, pitch a fit is lack of a better term. But I believe the albums from Ummagumma, Atom Heart Mother, Metal and Obscured by Clouds had the Harvest label on the records. But now this time around, I'm gonna assume it's down to rights, or maybe there's some sort of loophole in contracts where they can't use that. They instead use this sort of updated new label for Pink Floyd Records. Pink Floyd Records is also the label that all these reissues are under. I believe it's owned by Sony because EMI is now defunct. So Sony is looking over them here in the US, and I believe it's Parlophone over in the UK. And I'll even show some more examples of the artwork as I try to get Ummagumma back in its sleeve. I'll take care of that later. Doing this all in one shot. Even Obscured by Clouds has the rounded corners on the album. And I don't know if you can tell on Metal, but it kind of has a textured kind of cover. I'm not sure if the early pressings had that, particularly in England. I'm not sure, but of course, the 8-fold is replicated very nicely, and everything is done to great detail in terms of the artwork. Everything looks very sharp and very nice. Now let's go down to the sound quality. Now, on all the reissues, there's a hype sticker that comes on the front, and it states that they were remastered from the original analog tapes. And there's a little bit of I wouldn't say maybe a white lie. There's a little bit of truth in there. According to SuperDeluxeEdition.com, it was said that new digital transfers were made from the analog sources to make these reissues. Now, I take it that they probably mastered these digital transfers in a way that they would be suitable for vinyl, because there's always the whole debate on the whole analog versus digital thing when it comes to vinyl reissues. Some people prefer purely analog, and there's some cases where uncompressed digital transfer sounds great. And with that being said, that is the route that they went for these. And Bernie Grundman is the person that mastered these reissues, and I gotta say, they sound absolutely excellent. I listened to Echoes on Metal when I first got this. I gave it a listen, and it just blew my way. The fidelity that was on this record, it was just completely out of this world. And even things like Obscured by Clouds, they just sounds very crisp, very punchy. Bernie Grundman did a fantastic job on these reissues. Even something kind of just run-of-the-mill, like the collection of great dance songs. The version of Sheep, the crescendo before the ending guitar solo, my jaw dropped. I could not believe how just amazing this sounded. So, if you were really kind of contemplating these reissues for some reason, if you see them, get them. And they're also available for a relatively good price. I would say on average maybe about $23.99, maybe a little bit more for the doubles. I've even seen them drop in price on Amazon frequently, because on Amazon prices go up and down all the time. So if you have the chance to get them, please do, because they sound absolutely excellent. They're great additions to your vinyl collection, to your Pink Floyd collection. They are absolute must-haves. So that right there is my verdict on the Pink Floyd vinyl reissues. What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on these reissues. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the record spinning.